Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today's episode is the second of the 5 specials from 2008 to 2010. Planet of the Dead. It's also the first one to be filmed in HD. Take the bus, they said. It'll be fine, they said. Sure, unless the doctor decides to take the bus with you. This episode is written by Russell T. Davis and Gareth Roberts, directed by James Strong. It originally aired on the 11th of April 2009 and was watched by 9.54 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hey everyone, it's Kelsey.
Hello, I'm Josh.
Hi, it's Frank.
This is Brian.
And this is Heather.
A burglar sneaks into a museum and artfully steals a golden chalice. She is chased on her way out, but eludes the guards and hops onto a bus. The doctor also gets on the bus and sits next to her. He's tracking a tiny, harmless hole in space. The bus enters the tunnel, and the police barricade the other end, but the bus vanishes in the middle of the tunnel. It is violently transported to a barren desert planet with 3 suns.
Now, did she replace the chalice with the palace or the vessel with the pestle?
Well, the brew that is true was in the...
Well, they broke the vessel with the pestle, so maybe she used the flagon with the dragon.
Ah.
No, she used a little cat to replace it. And that was her demise, because she did that, and that's what the guard heard, was the cat, and turned around. She had to be cutesy
Oh, the
and
lucky
clever.
cat.
The lucky
I thought
cat.
that was really stupid on a burglar's part.
But she's a cat
Right,
burglar.
no, I get that.
She was doing it for the thrill.
Yeah, he wants to be chased.
Yeah.
It's also a TV show.
Yes, I know.
You gotta do something. And just in Brian's history corner, it's the chalice of Aethelstan. Aethelstan was king of the Anglo-Saxons from 924 to 927, and in 927 he became what's considered the very first king of England. 927 to 939.
Was he a merry old king?
No, he was not. He was the grandson of Alfred the Great, who was the only
Alfred the Great, was he?
king in British history called the Great.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's the only one. He wasn't even a king of
Alexander the
England.
Great. Where is he king of?
Greece.
I'm thinking Henry. I'm confusing Alexander the Great and Henry VIII.
And it's Henry VIII.
They have the same middle name.
Nobody says Henry's great.
Right, yeah.
Where there were 8
Except
Henrys.
Henry.
There were 8 Henrys, and there has not been a 9th.
Henry the Great.
Yeah, right.
No? Just me? Okay.
Just you.
This has been Brian's History Corner.
The more we know.
I heard that name first on the show Vikings. I don't know if you guys watched that. He was a monk
Ooh, I used
in
to.
ancient Britain, but I'm sure that's all fictional.
Well, it is a History Channel show, so it seems like they should have done some research.
Yeah, I think eventually he must have became the king, or like named after this monk. Like it's
Those are very
it's
common
very
names
early.
for that time
yeah.
period. When I studied it, they all had.
There's only like 3
Aethelstan,
names.
Aethelred.
He must have drank from a chalice. It's obvious. I mean,
He really likes his Stella Artois.
Every time I rewatch this episode, I never, because of the opening with this burglar, I never remember what this episode is about. I'm always like, wait, what is this episode?
I like the detective that's chasing her. I got a kick out of him.
Yeah, I thought when I first watched this episode that was going to be what this was going to be more about, and the doctor was there to kind of catch the bad guy, but then it goes somewhere completely different.
Which I like.
I think it's going against type and format. And then the doctor uses his psychic paper as his bus pass, so it fools...
That's great.
It even fools machines.
For his lobster card.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
No,
That was the joke.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
She said,
Was
what
that-
was it?
She said, "Does a lobster card work?" And he's like, "Oyster card?"
Oh, I only worked to
Well, he says that, and she, right? Because he doesn't know.
He's a bus driver. He's like, "Why are you
he-
saying
right,
lobster?
right,
That's
right,
so
right.
weird."
This was one where there's a lot of quick jokes where
Yeah.
I had to go back with the subtitles because even in that dialogue, there's so much happening there. Like she says months with an R in them, and he
It's
says
April.
it's April. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But when I first watched it, I thought it was some Britishism that I didn't
Right.
know. Like that everybody over there must know that this is that holiday month. But
Right,
yeah.
right.
I also forgot that their bus pass transport thing is called an Oyster card. different. So
Yeah.
going from lobster to oyster was just as crazy.
Yeah, I had no idea either, but I figured it out by what they were saying.
Yeah, I'm with you. That joke made me remember that it was an oyster card. But if he hadn't been confused, I would have totally gone with it. Lobster sounds great.
They really don't make her a nice character at the beginning. I mean, yes, she's breaking in, but she's also doing it really cocky,
She's always
putting the cat
smiling.
there. When she leaves, she's looking over and they're arresting a guy who definitely was her partner, which you could just see she's just using. She's like, sorry, you got caught, I did it. And just having no consequences to her actions. And then to pay, she pays with the diamond earrings that she has, which I'm wondering, they're fake.
Oh,
they
you
have to be
think?
fake because the way she is,
I kinda
she
took-
would just con somebody and say, yeah, they're real. And
Or
That's
money
true.
is no object.
That's
Yeah,
kind of how
that's kinda how I thought of it, too.
It's just about the fun for her. So like her stealing that thing.
Also,
but later on, it says that money is an object.
Well,
Oh,
maybe
that's-
that thing
yeah.
is so much that the chalice is worth a hell lot more than a couple of earrings.
We're not there yet, but they should have come through the wormhole
right.
with
They
the
would've
bones.
just
and,
dropped.
like, 2 little earrings.
That would have been a good little shot there.
she gets on the bus. The bus starts going along its route, and the police start chasing with their sirens going and all this kind of stuff. Why doesn't the bus stop?
Well, the bus driver wanted to get away with what he thought were real diamond earrings.
I like it.
Or he was deaf.
Do we want to talk about the actress?
I don't think we learn her name yet at this point, but she is Lady Christina D'Souza, and she's played by Michelle Ryan. Us in the States would know her from the remake or reboot of The Bionic Woman.
Bionic Woman. The Bionic Woman is Lindsay Wagner, Jamie Summers. She's just Bionic Woman. What chip? What chip do you see on my
You
shoulder?
hit a nerve there.
Yes, she did. Yeah, that was
Anything else we
fun.
would recognize her from though? Because I didn't watch Bionic Woman.
Jekyll and Hyde with Stephen Moffat did that show. She was in EastEnders, bunch of British stuff.
I didn't watch any of those. Maybe she just has one of those faces.
When I first saw her, I thought she was Gwyneth, but I knew she wasn't, but just that brunette and the shape of her eyes was very similar to Gwyneth from Torchwood.
She was in Cockneys and Zombies, or Versus Zombies. She's been in Covert Affairs.
She reminds me of Kristen Ritter a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
We also heard here that it was Easter. That was a fun little
Oh.
dialogue between
So
the doctor and
the
her.
candy that he was eating, was that an Easter thing? What was he eating? Was he eating just a chocolate bunny?
egg.
I thought it was orange.
Was it the
had
chocolate
foil
orange thing?
I
wrapper.
love the chocolate oranges, but we eat those at Christmas.
That was yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought it was an egg.
But this was the Easter special, which they never had before. It was the 5 specials throughout the one calendar year. This one aired at Easter, so they just threw in that Easter reference for fun.
I'm really surprised they didn't go like Psycho Bunny or something.
I'd never come on Easter. It keeps moving around. However, the first Easter I was there, and what really happened, let me tell you, my machine is going bing. The tires are buried in the sand, and the top of the bus has been damaged when it came through the wormhole. The doctor was tracking this wormhole when it grew in size, and the bus drove right through it. The bus driver says he wants to go home and rushes back through it, bursting into flames and materializing as a smoldering skeleton back on Earth. The metal of the bus protected those inside, and it is their only way back, but it is stuck in the sand.
Anyone else besides me bothered by how calm everybody is taking the whole now
Yeah.
we're on another planet?
Because they address that. Because the 2 guys, Graham, is it Graham? No, Nathan.
Nathan
And Barkley. They actually address that because they're standing around going, wow, this was like a couple months back when all those planets were in the sky. So these are a group of humans that have already experienced weird, bizarre space stuff. And I think it's Barkley that says, no, we moved, that was the whole Earth moved that.
Oh, they even said that.
Yeah.
I missed all of that.
Yeah.
Because they're referencing Journey's End and Stolen Earth.
Yeah, which I thought was I like it that they didn't waste time on it, but I also like that they spent 1 or 2 lines to kind of explain it away.
And speaking of Barkley, the actor Daniel Kaluuya, who was not Oscar nominated for Get Out.
I
He's also
wondered if that was him.
in Black Panther.
He was
I recognized him.
he was also Wakabi in Black Panther, like you mentioned, and he was in the episode 15 Million Merits from Black Mirror, I think season 2
Yeah.
Yes.
or season 1.
Yeah.
Whatever.
He's great.
There are a lot of good little parts in this scene. When Christina asks the doctor what his name is, it was a fun little part. Well, what's your name? The doctor. Not your rank, your name. The doctor. Your surname. Doctor. It's like, really?
What she say? That's a
Psychotic?
Medical disorder, or
Yeah,
more like a
something like
mental
that.
disorder.
So, yeah, that's a Yeah, psychotic condition or something
Yeah,
like that.
that was it.
But look at-
Psychotic condition
Yeah.
to call yourself the doctor.
And then also just the whole kind of feeling that they did in Midnight.
Like
This is
trap.
very similar to that.
Yeah.
Oh, and he even mentions
There's a
it,
mention of it, yeah.
going, oh gosh, people on the bus, they're always going to blame me for everything.
Yeah.
And they're both beginning to figure each other out already.
Yeah.
She's wondering what he is, and he's already wondering what she is.
I have such a hard time with Christina's character because on the one hand, I'm like, oh, she's really badass. Like, I love that. And on the other hand, I'm like, God, I can't stand you.
But she's
Yeah.
so
I don't know
smug.
what
too.
She's just very overly smug.
And never learns.
yeah,
And
I
it
don't
does
know.
start- I'm glad
She's
you-
frustrating.
Pointed out that she just leaves her partner. That's what sets it off. And it's like you never get past. It's like, so she can't have a partner. So this whole "are you a potential companion" thing, we're already kind of subconsciously going, you could never be a companion.
Right.
Maybe that's why they did it.
Maybe, but it doesn't make her a good guest star.
She's a user.
True, yeah.
She uses everybody. I don't think she was even with that partner very long. It was her
I don't
getaway.
think so either.
She hired him on Craigslist.
Could you, like, as someone who was born and raised in the U.S., like, I don't know all the connotations of aristocracy. Is there any, like, insight, like, that somebody who's more versed in British culture could give? Brian? Like,
Well, they're playing on the stereotype that the aristocracy is bored.
Okay.
The aristocracy has nothing to do but just mess with things.
and still be rich. Like,
And
they're still
yeah,
all
they're totally
landowners.
rich. And,
Okay.
and like if you think of Dangerous Liaisons, if you've ever seen that movie, that's just the aristocracy messing with people's lives just because they're bored and they just want to make it's kind of like also Trading Places with Eddie Murphy. The two guys ruin Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy's lives over a bet for $1. And these guys are billionaires. She's not really after money. She's not really a bad person. She just likes adventure.
Okay. Thank you.
Some production stuff here is that the first day of footage when they shot in Dubai was unusable because of a sandstorm, and they had to give all the crew like headscarves and sunglasses. So when I think it was one of the producers was out there, she could not tell who was who because everybody looked the same.
And where did they shoot this?
Dubai. And the bus got damaged on the way to Dubai. As you can tell, when they're shooting on the night scenes in London, the bus is fine. But then when they land in Dubai in the sand, the top has been messed up. And that's because it was damaged during transport from wherever they got it in London to Dubai.
So,
And
but it seemed to be a story point. Did they
Because-
write that in?
They did that after the fact.
because they had time to go back and rewrite. Julie called Russell and said, "There's a big problem. The bus has been damaged in transit." And he goes, "I'll write it in. That's what happens when you."
I think he said, we have insurance, and they both burst out laughing. And so he wrote in that it got damaged through the wormhole. And then the big problem was that they had two buses, one that went to Dubai, and then there was one that they filmed on the sets, on the stage in London. They had to damage the one that was fine now, which they weren't planning on doing, to make it match the damaged one in Dubai.
I also want to point out that there's an advertisement on the side of the bus, and it says Neon by Naismith, a phone company, or a new phone. And so we'll hear about that later.
I never realized that.
Me either.
Wow. Okay.
You can't really see it because of the way that the top of the bus is damaged, but you definitely see Neon.
And that comes back in this episode?
No, later.
The burglar introduces herself as Christina. Also on the bus are Nathan, Barkley, Angela, Lou, and his wife Carmen, who is a bit psychic and can hear the screams of the dead. She says that the wormhole was put there for a reason and that something is coming on the wind. When asked by the doctor to name that something, she tells them it is death. Everyone begins to panic, but the doctor calms them down and promises to get them home.
I love a convenient telepath.
That lady sold it though. I really enjoy that creepiness of it. And
Kind
this is
of
also
reminds me of Latimer in Family of Blood, where it's like, oh, we need to move the plot along, so he's clever and clairvoyant.
This is also where the doctor starts to talk to them individually. That's just the character of the doctor, and I like that he's getting to know them, like we've said in this run of the show, is that he likes the ordinary person. He gets to know them, what they're doing, and
he's also distracting them from being scared.
yeah. But I like that he takes the time to get to know them, much like in Midnight, like we mentioned, that there has a reference to Midnight earlier. In here, he's doing the same thing that he did on that excursion bus, and he's talking to everybody that's on there.
Also, there's a bit where he promises to get them home, which is something the Doctor says relatively often, but it reminded me of a big part of the promotional package of the new 13th Doctor, where that was a big part of the season. Where I promise I'll get you home. And what I like about it is it's a consistency of character through all these incarnations of the Doctor.
Yeah, because in another special, Voyage of the Damned, he does the same thing. He promises to get everybody out, but not everybody does.
Obviously, he didn't see the Poseidon Adventure.
I liked Lady Christina taking charge, and the way that she did it by both her and the Doctor saying, yes, someone needs to take charge. And then, do they even both say me at the same time or something?
I think they
She just does.
Then she's like, aren't you doing? Says, oh no, you're in charge, aren't you? Doesn't he do that?
Yeah, and then she says, but I'm delegating, so.
But, she does it with just that bit of arrogance. Like Heather said earlier, there's two sides of Christina. She is badass, she is, authoritative, which is nice, but she has it with that edge of just either not really caring. She's doing this to get power, not to validate the Doctor.
She didn't need to solve the problem. She needed to just be in charge, and she knew he would solve the problem.
Right. She's taking the easy job, kind of.
Yeah, and then she'll take credit for him.
Right.
Although, going back from it when we were talking about how people didn't seem all that panicked, I will say, I thought this actress was good, but I felt like she was way too flippant for the situation. Even after that little bit of, she was half smiling all the time, and I kind of felt like she was, whether it was the direction or the actor herself, she was playing the fun of the character more than the actual reality of the situation she was in, a little bit too much.
And I took that as her thrill-seekingness of her being bored.
That's what I
so
took
I
it.
didn't have a problem with it.
But I felt that kind of kept
She's
taking
just
me out of it.
so cool.
Yeah.
Josh, she's just so cool. She can't even be bothered, okay?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, Josh, that you would say that, because I feel that that's what the Doctor does in a lot of these situations. And to people who are panicking, that is offensive to them. They're like, why are you enjoying this?
Yeah, why aren't you
We're-
freaking out?
But we
Yeah,
know
we're
he's a
about to
time-traveling
die.
alien. Where even though she's, a thrill-seeking cat burglar, she's still a person on planet Earth.
But what happens though is the companion tempers the Doctor, so he affects them, they affect him. So he goes through a character arc. I don't feel Christina goes through a character arc. I think she's
No.
exactly the same at
yeah.
the end as she is in the beginning. And this is a character that needs changing. And that's a big problem I have with this episode. There was something that I cared more about everybody else on the bus.
Yeah, the Doctor, as a viewer, we know he's smart. We know he's capable. He will find a way. His mind's always working. We don't get any of that with her. She just takes control, takes the power, and then assigns other people to do the actual work.
That's interesting, because that's what I'm saying. All the other characters feel every time they're in a situation with the Doctor. They don't know that he's the
Right.
Right,
who
but I'm
he
saying
is.
as a viewer,
Yeah.
we get that. So we're getting that
Yeah.
perspective, now going, wait a minute.
But the Doctor, but when that happens, the Doctor either gets slapped down or proven right.
That's why we like Donna's season so much, I think.
Because she smacks him down, and he accepts it, and he realizes, oh, I went too far. And Christina just never does. Every time I watch this episode, it always starts off, and I go, why do I not like this episode? This isn't bad. And then by the end of the episode, I go, oh yeah, I remember now. Just you get promised something that doesn't get delivered.
Yeah.
Even though Christina doesn't plot and figure things out, she is well prepared.
Oh yeah.
Oh
for
yeah.
any illegal thing that might happen to her. She's got the shovel and the axe and the hammer and the winch and who knows what else in that
What else?
bag.
It's like the bag's bigger on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like Mary Poppins, or she's gonna have severe back problems sometime.
Or Felix the cat.
Oh, that's right.
With his bag, yeah.
Nathan and Barclay remove parts of the seats to use as traction under the bus's wheels. With the help of the many tools Christina happens to have in her bag of tricks, which interests the Doctor. The engine is covered in sand, so Barclay begins to clear it. The Doctor leaves to investigate the area, and Christina goes with him, wanting to keep him in her sights. She confesses that she is the Lady Christina de Souza, and he admits that he is a lord. As they watch a distant sandstorm approaching, they realize it is not sand and rush back to the bus.
So this filming on location at this point, I was really getting into the scope of this episode and how much more vast it seemed. It was just really cool to see that this was obviously not a set. This wasn't superimposed. And then I just thought, oh my God, how did they manage this production?
Yeah, at one point they were saying, careful where you walk, because if you walk outside of where you're supposed to, it's going to take the crew to clear that away.
Yeah.
instead of digitally removing it, so they had to be very careful.
Wow.
Is it extremely much more expensive than usual?
I want to say at this point, Dubai was probably welcoming more things like this because they did the Mission Impossible 4th movie there.
Yeah, but still, I mean,
Well, from 2008 to 2010, they only had 5 specials instead of full seasons, so they probably had more money to spend on the specials.
All right, well then there you go.
Oh, Russell was also maybe inspired is the best word, but Classic Who has done on location things in previous seasons. Like in City of Death, they went to Paris. Oh, there was one with the Fifth Doctor. They went to Amsterdam. But yes, there is a history of Doctor Who going on specific locations.
They've come. Oh, we haven't gotten to it yet, but they're
Like
gonna
Cardiff.
come to America.
Yeah, well, the TV movie, even though that takes place in America, was shot in Canada.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking
I know.
About,
I know you're not. That's why I'm trying to deflect you from talking about that.
Oh.
And the
What?
cars-
Who said anything? I didn't say anything.
I know. I'm preventing it.
The doctor tastes the sand, that there's something
Yeah.
odd in it. And when you find out what it is, that's really disgusting.
Gross.
Yeah.
One thing I like about this over Midnight is I feel like all of the characters here have things to do. They have specialties and they are encouraged to do them and then praised for doing them. Like everyone is, it's kind of like Star Trek. Like one of the things that's really good about Star Trek is everyone trusts everyone else to be competent at their jobs and to do things. And here, like everyone is trusting everyone else to be competent enough to drive a bus, to fix a bus, to dig holes, which doesn't take much competence. But at least like everyone is encouraged and is working towards a goal, where at Midnight there was more internal strife within the group that for me made that, like I enjoyed this part of it more than that part of Midnight.
But yeah, like you don't like any of those other passengers in Midnight after that halfway through the episode, whereas you
They're
like
terrible.
everybody here. Yeah.
It was a positive flip side of it. Midnight, middle of the day. You know, the lighting was there. And I'm wondering now,
That was the original title of the episode. Middle of the day.
Carmen is frantic about the approaching storm. The doctor uses his sonic to upgrade Barclay's phone and calls Unit. Captain Magumbo has already set up a perimeter around the tunnel once the smoldering skeleton came out of the wormhole. She connects him with their lead scientist on hand, Malcolm Taylor, who will analyze the wormhole and relay the results to the doctor. Do we recognize Captain Magumbo?
I do.
She was the same captain in Turn Left when Donna and Rose were in that
Oh,
parallel timeline.
I didn't recognize her.
Where else
For
have you
that.
seen her from, Brian?
She's Hermione in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
Nice. I haven't.
It's the
Oh
original,
my god.
the original London.
Sorry.
No, that was appropriate.
It was in play?
She's
In the
still
play.
doing
Oh,
it.
oh.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
still
She's
there.
still
yeah?
in New York.
Yeah, that's right. She moved to Broadway. She's won some awards. I don't think she won a Tony, but she won the British equivalent. I think it was a BAFTA.
I also like here that the doctor can sense that she is saluting over the phone.
That's so Unit.
She does have a very saluty voice, though.
Yes.
And
If
I
that
love the
makes any
guy.
sense.
I love the guy playing the doctor. I think he's great. The scientist.
He's very Welsh. Boy, is he Welsh.
So Malcolm Taylor is played by Lee Evans, who we've seen from The Fifth Element, There's Something About Mary, and he's a stand-up comedian, actor, and musician over in the UK.
He was also in that movie with Nathan Lane called Mousetrap.
Yes, and
Oh
with
my
Jackie Chan
God.
in The Medallion.
Oh, okay.
And he's originally British.
Yes,
He's a good
British.
actor.
At first, I was like, this guy's a little over the top, but then he's just so funny.
He's so committed
He sells
to
it
being
well.
Yeah,
over
yeah,
the
yeah,
top
yeah.
that you just have
You
to
could- that role easily could have gone wrong, and
absolutely,
it
yeah.
doesn't. He
you
stands up
talking-
to her. He stands up to the doctor. You know, in the way he wants to stand up. He's a fanboy.
You're my new best friend. You're my. Oh yeah.
And I think it works too the way that she's rolling her eyes at him.
Yeah.
It helps balance it out.
Yeah, totally.
There's
yeah.
there's a history there between
Yeah,
these two.
so we gotta work with this guy again.
where-
Who's the scientist on site?
Yeah, I think when she first comes in to tell him that's the doctor, he's like, "Oh, just a little sore throat, but a cup
Yeah.
of tea would be nice."
Yeah.
Like, yes, I'm sure that is what constantly happens between those two.
Are you talking
yeah.
Mousetrap as an Agatha Christie?
No, it's like
a movie.
It's a movie. It's like a mad. It's a mad.
Based on the game.
Let me just look it up then. Mouse Hunt. Sorry,
Okay.
Mouse
Because we
Hunt.
say Mousetrap,
Oh,
that's
mouse
Agatha Christie.
hunt. It's basically the Home Alone of, like, I don't know, mouse hunting.
Yeah, they're trying to. Him and Nathan Lane are trying to kill a mouse, and the mouse gets the better of them.
It's a Tom and Jerry with humans.
It doesn't talk. It's a real-ish mouse, you know.
And they're
But
exterminators.
he's like, Kevin McAllister's the hell out of those guys.
Yeah.
So Malcolm reminds me of Oswin, and I kind of like the precursor where you get Malcolm being like dressed up as the fourth Doctor, sort of. Their look is so similar. They got the lab coat and the scarf and the
and so it's like he's the original Oswin.
I
That's
didn't
something.
pick up on that.
I didn't pick up on that
Get
either.
glasses.
Because Oswin
glasses.
is definitely cosplaying
It's
as the
overt
Doctor.
on her.
Yeah.
I just want to add that I like that we go into Malcolm's trailer and back and forth.
Yeah.
It really was a great little set.
We're not used to having this many sets. It's very jarring for a Doctor Who fan.
When he calls unit for the first time and gets the wrong number? Did you catch
No, I didn't. Who did he call?
Pizza Geronimo?
Yeah.
And now it's just kind of like, oh, that must have stuck in his head.
Yeah, which is another something that'll pay off later. When you look at it that way, you can see these weird connections that aren't really there, but as a weird like
Meta thing.
microcosm.
Yeah.
When you see it this way, it's funny how things sort of are synergistic.
The rest of the group continue to dig out the bus while the Doctor and Christina check on the progress of the storm. They are captured by an alien with the head of a fly. Let's call him Mr. Flyman, who takes them back to his crashed ship. The Doctor explains to the alien and his friend, both Tridivores, that the Doctor's group did not cause their ship to crash, and that their bus crashed here as well. Now friendly, the Tridivores help the Doctor send out a probe to analyze the approaching storm. Searching the ship's records, they discover that this planet was a thriving place a year ago, and the sand is what remains of the cities, oceans, and the billions of dead inhabitants.
It's people.
Well, this is where
When they figure out what's going on.
this is where the episode for me just kind of loses it, because it's like the Flyman ship is just exposition land. It's like they go into that ship and it's nothing but, okay, we need to explain this, and then we're going to explain this, and then we're going to explain this, and then we're going to explain this character bit.
And they do it so she can't understand what they're saying, so the Doctor has to tell her, which is telling us.
Yeah.
I do really like the twist of when you see that hand clicking at the TV screen, you think that's the bad guy. Because again, I hadn't seen this episode in quite a while, so I forgot that Flyman.
Yeah.
They do it kind of often in the show, but this is a good example in this episode where it keeps you engaged enough to find out whose hand is that. So you're waiting to see who the bad guy is, and then you find out the bad guy isn't the bad guy, but then you have the rest of the episode with a new bad guy, which was also introduced earlier, but you thought it was something mundane. That's the part of the episode I feel is good writing.
It just goes on too long for me. The entire time they're in the ship, nothing happens.
That's where I get all the information, like you said, exposition. So to me, it was needed, because up until now, it's just a lot of conveniences. Because you have to get this, bus prepared, and he's just going off. I want to look around this planet because everything's telling me to get off this planet, but I'm just going to go walk over this next dune to see what's there.
Because he can't help himself.
It just seems so convenient. And
It's
then finding the alien ship.
I liked how they explained that the ship crashed. Did we find that out yet?
Yes,
Not
but that
yet,
it was there.
but-
Just
Yeah.
they're the only two things on this planet.
Right.
The reason why their ship crashed makes sense. That's the one ship that's there. There only has two people on it, and that they actually were able to see it. It just seems too many conveniences to make the story work.
Yeah.
I was just going to say I agree with all your points, but I just want to say that I personally was not bothered by it. I can't really say why, except for that I get frustrated when I don't know what the hell's going on, and so maybe I was just feeling so much aha moment that I didn't really notice a feeling of everything kind of halting, or so I didn't feel that. So that's interesting that all of you guys did.
For myself, I think the problem is that the fly people, the Tridivores, like they get wiped out at the end. Like as soon as we're done with them, all right, let's get rid of them. Where if they had been able to incorporate their story back on Earth or something, it would feel less like that was just the exposition and now we're done. It would have felt like part of the story.
Bring those costumes to Dubai.
Yeah, they probably couldn't take those to Dubai because of all the sand and the wind. It would mess up all the gears going into those armatures and things.
Maybe.
Yeah, which is a shame because those costumes are really good.
They
Like
were
the
pretty
helmets are very.
The
There's a
mouth, the
lot of
articulated
stuff,
mouth
yeah,
things
going on. But
It's funny because at first you think, oh, this is another cheesy Doctor Who outfit. He's just a big bug, but it's done so well you don't care.
But the problem with that, I think, is that I just don't care about those characters, which is a shame that they put all the work into those armatures.
But I started to care about them a bit because you do think, well, did we get there yet? Yeah. that they are the enemy. But then it's like, no, they're just trying to figure out what happened to their ship,
Right.
and they are friendly and they do work with
I
it.
mean, another purpose it does serve is we see the baddie alien eat them, so we visually see the threat.
The only purpose that I see to have that ship there is so that they can get technology to fly the bus back.
See, for me, they could have gotten that technology without the 2 flymen. They could have just repurposed it. Because the Doctor knows how to repurpose other
Yeah, but that was
technology.
the red herring that we were saying.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what would make it better for me. I don't know. Malcolm calls the Doctor and tells him the wormhole has grown to 4 miles with no sign of stopping. He gets another call from Nathan, who tells him that in their attempts to free the bus, they ran out of gas. The probe reports that it has reached the storm and relays video showing the sandstorm is really a swarm of flying creatures with metallic exoskeletons. The probe is eaten by one of them and it sends back analysis of the creatures. They are creating the wormhole by the momentum of their numbers, flying across the planet, building up energy that will open the breach in space. Converting the metal they eat to their exoskeleton protects them as they pass through the wormhole to their next meal, which means Earth.
At first, I didn't like the design of the creatures, but they grew on me. They're kind of like pitch black, like that kind of alien.
That's definitely what they were inspired by.
Yeah, I like they're like stingrays, but also sharks, and yeah, it's a neat creature all put together.
What's pitch black?
With Vin Diesel, they're stranded on that desert planet.
I watched that.
But that one's the problems come at night, where
Yeah.
this one the problems are all the time.
But yeah, in sci-fi, there's a lot of seafaring creatures that make their way into...
The air.
Yeah, like this one old 80s cartoon, Starcom, they're space whales and they look like big jellyfish that don't need water. And then there's Star Trek where the whales are communicating. So there's a lot of... Oh, and Buckaroo Banzai, everything looks like crustaceans.
True.
Goodness, Auburn made me watch that movie.
I love that movie. It's a cult classic. I love the theme song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like the idea about how that's what makes them survive through the wormhole.
Yes, if they have
It was
the
all like
protection
it was
for
all.
it.
It wasn't just like, oh, and they're hard to kill because their bodies are. It's like it's all has a purpose. It doesn't even say it's not their fault. They're just doing something
they're just creatures.
Just trying to eat.
until they kill Steve
Trying
Irwin.
to survive.
I just had to go
Too
there.
soon.
Oh,
Too soon.
I'm the only one who hasn't spoken to this, I think, but I love the design. I'm with you, Josh, where my initial thought was, okay, it's a stingray. But once I saw that exoskeleton and everything, I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I'm a lover.
I just wish the CG was better.
Yeah, I
Picture?
felt the animation was pretty good, and the design of it, but it looked a little cartoonish, and I think that's why, because it didn't composite very well.
My guess is they probably spent that money on
On
getting
location, yeah.
everybody there and then the 2 buses.
Right.
And I think swarms are hard, especially a flying creature that shouldn't be flying. You know, like we know what flight looks like.
Yeah,
And
to me, it didn't quite work when they were in the spaceship actually attacking
okay.
them. Like, it worked well, like I said, animation wise, and how the way the actors were reacting to it, but it didn't feel like it was in the room. That's why when things do look really good on the show, I'm always really impressed.
The Tridivor's ship cannot fly, but their crystal power source is intact. If he can get to it, the Doctor can adapt it to the bus and get them off the planet. The Doctor and the flymen try to retrieve the power source but cannot reach it. Christina pulls out a winch from her bag and lowers herself down the shaft, cat burglar style, to get the crystal and its housing clamps. When she is coming back up, one of the flying storm creatures that initially damaged the ship attacks, but she is able to escape. The 4 of them are leaving the ship when a flyer bursts in and eats the 2 Tridivores.
So that happened.
I like this scene. I thought it was fun that she has a
Yeah.
winch in there.
Yeah,
And
the idea of it. is
the
great.
Doctor's trying to get through a different way.
I'm
going,
talk-
and she's all the time just setting it all up. This is what I can do. This is my specialty. I'm going for
And
it.
I'm talking about the deaths of the flymans because, like, I wanted to feel more, but I didn't. I just wanted
You
to feel.
are a cold-hearted son of a...
Well, they only have a life expectancy of a day.
But the fact that but the fact that I wanted to feel more makes me a better person.
No! You fail at life.
It's just Eugene and his insect logic.
To me, the moment they died, it was like, well, they couldn't figure out what to do with them.
It's exactly what I
Yeah.
thought. Because I thought it was interesting when one of them died, and then that fella is gonna have to deal with the loss of his friend, co-pilot, companion, whatever, and then he's gonna be on another planet, and like, oh, how interesting is it? Chomp.
Yeah. For me, it's like when she's going down the shaft and they're talking, telling each other's life story to each other. Boring. You know, and it just all it does is it just confuses her character to me. Where it's like, oh, well, Dad lost all the money in the Icelandic banks. And all I can think of was, oh, that really happened in 2008 in the financial collapse. I didn't care about her.
I'm not sure I even believe her that her father lost money
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the Icelandic banks.
And the thing
I
is,
think
that
that's
never gets paid off.
Yeah.
We never get it paid off.
I believe her at that, but I think possibly could also be when you're broke and a billionaire, that means you only have, $500 million.
You know what it is
Yeah.
this character had no conflict. She had no obstacle in her emotional life or physical life aside from running from the cops, which she wasn't even afraid of.
Right.
What
So-
she wanted was adventure, and that she could see that she can get it with the
but
doctor.
there wasn't anything constraining her from adventure because she was already getting it. Astrid was oppressed. Rose was young and bored.
No, totally agree.
Like every other character, even Jenny with a Y or whatever it was, like they always had something an obstacle in their lives, like I said, be it either psychological, physical, or emotional. This gal didn't have nothing.
I think the reason that they set this whole talk between the two is to try and psych us out and go, oh, she's going to be a companion. They're just trying to set her up as a companion.
Totally agree with that.
And then tear it down to shock us all.
Yeah,
oh, she's
totally
not
agree
going to
with
go.
that.
But the way they wrote it is we didn't want her as a companion.
I just don't think it's well written, and the structure of it, just coming off of a gigantic exposition scene explaining the whole plot, and then we get her
We get another exposition
slowly
scene.
going down the shaft. It's like I'm done with this episode.
I liked some of that banter, but as a character point, it showed something that the part that we like about Christina. It's like there is something redeemable there.
I think it might have come too late for me because I don't care about the flyman, and then when she has a moment of
But even if it
humanity,
came too late, it's there.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, for me,
Yeah.
it doesn't hit because it just
There's a lot
Don't
of good
care.
stuff in this episode. It's just sort of glued together, not the best.
The doctor and Christina make it back to the group and attach the housing clamps of the crystal to the bus. He calls Malcolm and tells him to prepare to close the wormhole because they are on their way back. The doctor needs an electric conductor to finish the connection of the clamp to the steering wheel and asks for the chalice, which he had found in her bag earlier. Christina reluctantly gives it to him, but reminds him it is priceless, so handle it with care. Instead, he takes a hammer and smashes it to the size and dimensions he needs. The doctor activates the device, which levitates the bus.
I love that part where he smashes the thing. But also, there's a part of me inside that dies a little bit when he does it.
Yeah, it drives me nuts. No, that's historic.
But he laughs at architects.
Archaeologists.
Listen to me.
Archaeologists.
Thank you. So,
This is the moment that Christina's character arc should have been leading up to.
She offers it to
Yes.
him.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
should have said, he says, I need something, I need something, I need something. And she offers him
She
the chalice.
argues with him about it.
Yes, and she has not learned, she has not changed a bit.
But then what also doesn't make sense, she doesn't take the gem. I kept expecting
Yeah.
her to take that
Take
gem.
the gem.
I did too.
So maybe she did grow a little.
Nah.
No. No.
He threw it away, so she thought it was useless.
Yeah, so she thought it was useless.
Yeah, and she's arguing with him. Well, handle it with care. It's worth a lot of money. It's like you already know the consequences. You already know that these people are going to die. That you're supposedly being a leader for. And okay, it could be like it's the culmination of the bad writing. If it had been well written up to this point, you could have had that moment of no, I don't care about the chalice. I don't care about the money. Let's
Yeah.
save everybody's
it's like
lives.
because the doctor brings the best out of people, and it didn't happen.
It didn't happen to this
I didn't
character.
even think of that. That it was a perfect moment for her to be very reflective, and then
Yeah, and that just bugs me. It just and then
Bugs you?
Yeah, but seriously, it bothers me. Where this character, it's just, this is not a character that I like at
To
all.
me, there's another part of just the convenience. You
Yeah.
know, we have the chalice. Oh, we need that particular item
Right,
to
but-
fix this problem that really doesn't. What happens to it? You never see it
You
inside
never see it again.
anywhere. What
Right,
did he
yeah.
pound
Exactly.
it to?
What if he really didn't need it at all, and he just wanted to like test
He's
her?
just screwing with her.
He just smashes it and throws it out the window.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting theory, but probably
No,
not true.
yeah, I mean,
but-
just to teach her a lesson.
Smashy, smashy.
This part goes above and beyond, though.
Yeah,
with
the flying bus.
the
Talk
grip,
about
the
Harry
hooks,
Potter.
and the crystal not being worth anything. The gold I can understand, but yeah, the clamps, and then the clamp on the steering wheel that now controls the clamps on the other tire. Yeah, it's a little too far even for me.
I will say this: the bus looked good. Oh, the special effects with the bus looked better composited than the Stingrays did.
I really lose it when it flies over London.
the idea of it's silly.
their little victory
Yeah.
lap over London.
Oh,
Again,
yeah.
it's another one of
The,
those.
the British and their flying buses. It's I think we should also mention the guy who was in Get Out. His little sound up there with the gold watch. That
Oh, that was
that
great.
was
That
so
was a good
funny.
line.
Yeah.
That was fun.
What did he say? I can't remember the exact
They saw
line.
you coming.
They saw you coming, didn't they? And then the whole thing with him and his girlfriend. Is it girlfriend? Not yet.
Yeah. No, the show has lots of great
Yeah,
one-liners.
yeah.
There's lots of great moments.
And I even like the woman on the bus who started crying. Like the performance is really good. They felt like real people. They didn't even feel like cookie cutter types that they shoved into there. Even the husband of Carmen, he was like a real person.
Lou.
That's right, Lou for short. They call me Lou. There's a lot of stuff in this episode I like, but I think that the bones of it are that character, and they just didn't hit it.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, I care for everybody on the bus except her.
She sure was pretty though, so that kept me watching.
Malcolm has figured out a way to close the wormhole, and Captain Magambo orders him to close it immediately. He argues that he will not begin the procedure until the doctor comes through, but she holds a gun to his head and orders him to close the wormhole to save the planet. He still refuses. A soldier announces that the bus is back, defusing the standoff. A few of the flyers also come through, and unit soldiers fire at them. Malcolm tries to close the breach, but it doesn't work. The doctor calls, and together they work out a solution. The wormhole closes before the main swarm can get through. Missiles take out two of the flyers, but the third is going after the bus. The doctor swings the bus around, hitting the creature until a unit can shoot it down.
I love all the stuff with the scientist guy.
I do too.
thought it was so great.
She also has a point.
Of course she has a point.
She totally
but
has a
this
point.
is what bothered me. And this is, I think, a flaw of this episode, as I feel like they kind of let too many things slide. She's like, do this now immediately. There is no time to waste. The bus comes through, and what, 3 to 5 minutes later,
Yeah.
they close the wormhole
Yeah.
or they do whatever. It's just like, she doesn't even run out of there, and she, like, nothing. Everything that made her raise that gun to that guy's head, totally negated by her lack of urgency afterwards.
When she left, she should have said now.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
just a one word.
Yeah.
Or,
Well,
you know,
yeah, they
do
should
it
have been
now.
back on the same page then.
Yeah.
So she would have been
Right.
like, it's back, shut it now. You know, and he would have done it. It would have
Or tried to. 'cause
or
it
tried
didn't
to.
work.
Yeah, I'd tried to.
I like too when he kept hanging up on the doctor.
Yeah.
Not
I'm
now.
busy.
And he named the units after himself.
Oh
There's a
yeah.
lot of great stuff.
Yeah, the doctor's reaction when he gets hung up on.
Right, yes, yeah.
the best.
My favorite call is when Malcolm says he's ready right away, and the doctor says, "You're ready for what?" And Malcolm says, "Whatever."
Right.
Like that. That was the good.
Yeah.
That was my favorite moment.
Was
with
that
Malcolm.
at the more the first
I think it was
introduction?
no. I think it was at the end when they were when everything was coming to a head.
No, I thought it was at the first introduction. He just knows that. Oh, okay.
Going back to what you mentioned about Malcolm naming units of measurements, the Bernard was after Professor Bernard Quatermass from the British rocket group to which Quatermass belonged. And it also referred to Quatermass himself, and then, of course, Malcolm for himself.
Well, I liked on the second viewing how I noticed more how many things were named after people. I guess just Faraday cage.
Yeah.
And
Faraday
Watts,
Cage and
like-
Watts. Yeah, you don't know where these names come from.
But they come from people. Just like the planet. It's made of people.
And Soylent Green.
Invented by Mr. Soylent.
I thought it was Mr. Green.
Oh.
Mr. Green. In the library with the lead piping. At this point, when the doctor and Malcolm finally do meet, this is where the Oswin, cosplayer motif really comes out for me, is because when he does hug the doctor and they meet for the first time, he's wearing a brown scarf with blue pinstripes, just like the doctor is wearing a brown suit with blue pinstripes.
Oh,
I didn't
my
see that he had a
god.
scar. Also, they had that little political statement when they're all trying to shoot at the Stingray flyers. The guns don't work. Guns don't work. So they have to use the missiles. But the whole guns don't work. You've gone after Daleks and Cybermen. Your unit. Why are you using guns in something that the bus vanished and the guy came out as a skeleton? Get some of the more heavier artillery that you have.
I did find it, I mean, people in Britain won't feel this way so much, but when the cop was chasing after her at the end, him not pulling a gun on her, telling her to freeze or don't move, like, felt really weird to me. Like a cop chasing down a perp and not pulling out their gun.
Back to what you were saying about bullets and using that first instead of rockets, I took that as when the Brigadier in Robot mentioned that usually bullets don't work, or our enemies usually have an immunity to bullets. So I found that funny that they did use bullets first. Back to what Malcolm was saying earlier, we skipped over this, but he mentions that the doctor asks him what his favorite file about him was, and he mentions the K1 robot, and that's a reference to Robot with Tom Baker's first episode.
Where was that used?
In Robot.
I thought that he was referring to that Victorian,
Cyberman, Cyber King.
Yeah,
I could refer to that too.
But he.
There's probably been several giant robots.
Yeah, there's been
in
several.
Doctor Who's career.
I think not enough giant robots, actually.
After the bus lands, the doctor tells Captain Magumbo that Nathan and Barclay would make good additions to UNIT. Magumbo shows him the TARDIS, saying they found it at Buckingham Palace and brought it here. The other passengers are taken to be examined by UNIT, but Carmen stops by the doctor to warn him that his song is ending. She also says that it is returning, and that he will knock 4 times.
Again, convenient telepath.
Just when we've gotten past the idea of the last soothsayer, like another prediction like this comes up.
Yeah.
Because the last one was in, Fires of Pompeii.
The Ood, yeah.
And the Ood. Like,
Yeah.
there's always something put in there. And
Because the Ood were the ones who first said your song is going to end soon.
I like that motif through the Doctor Who show. Now that I've watched these shows repeatedly, I notice like, oh, here's another one.
Yeah,
As
here we go
opposed to
again.
when I first see them, I'm like, whoa, what's that gonna mean?
I do also like where it goes
Yeah.
in the next
No,
one.
it's very pertinent.
Yeah.
I think they do a good job of sparsing it out.
Yeah.
It's just now that I'm so familiar with the show,
It's
see
just what it does.
It's kind of like, Fonzie entering the room and the audience clapping. or Kramer. And obviously the knocking 4 times is something that is familiar.
Oh, that drove me crazy the first time. I just was like, what does it mean? Because, everyone's really sad to see him go. And it's the worst when you have to be reminded all the freaking time.
Right. I even remember watching this originally thinking like, oh, the Master's coming back. Like that's a direct reference to that to make the audience think the Master's coming back.
Here is a conversation between David Tennant and Julie Gardner. Here's David's part. Really, from this moment on, the Doctor's card is marked, because when we come back in the waters of Mars, it's all become a little darker. So here's Julie. And as we know, David, he really does knock 4 times, David. Yeah, absolutely. And if you think you figured out what that means, you're wrong, Julie. But when you figure it out, it's a sad day.
It's a mislead.
Yeah.
But it's
we know that.
it's purposely misleading you towards the Master.
So it was like, well, does that mean the Master's coming back? Well, why would you say it?
Well, it did come back and I was gonna make a Stephen King joke. Couldn't get it out.
Pennywise for your
Good
thoughts?
hustle.
Black Sparrow.
Oh wait, I just wanted to, and I'm sure you all catch this, but in case someone didn't, I like how when the Captain Magumbo says, "We found your TARDIS in the Buckingham Palace." Oh, no.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, Buckingham Palace, and then Gardens, Buckingham Gardens, yeah, Buckingham Gardens, and then the doctor says, "Oh shoot, she doesn't mind." I just thought that was funny.
I
He's
caught
referring
that.
to the Queen, right? And
Yeah,
it's
totally.
Just funny.
But
I take it the other way.
Yeah,
I take it the other way.
that
Oh.
is the TARDIS.
The
that
TARDIS
doesn't mind?
prefers the gardens.
I think it's totally
Well,
the
that's
Queen,
the first.
but it is just kind
Okay.
of funny where it's like, I kind of think the TARDIS doesn't mind being in the gardens either.
Well, that's what I thought too the first time I heard it.
Either
But
either
either
way,
way,
it's
it's
funny. Yeah.
I never got that as the TARDIS reference.
I tell you, I see these episodes over and over again, and there's always something new that I pick out of it or remember because I forgot. Because I know I've said this before on the podcast, but there's so much in an episode. It's surprising how much I don't remember, and so it's fun to rewatch.
Yeah, that's the joy of this podcast, really. Hopefully the people listening feel the same way.
Thank you. I agree with you.
I thought you were going to say that's the joy of watching Doctor Who, but then you talked about our podcast.
Well, I was going to say forces, but that's not the right word. It encourages you to revisit.
Oh yeah, for sure, and think about it actually more so.
Because there's many layers. It's like an onion.
And it makes you cry.
It does.
Christina asks to join the doctor, but he refuses, saying that he has lost too many people and he won't travel with a companion again. The police recognize her as their burglar and arrest her. The doctor quietly sonics the handcuffs off Christina's wrists and she escapes onto the flying bus. And the doctor leaves alone in the TARDIS. I love the fact that the back car door just opens.
Yes.
I kind of like that. I kind of laughed at. I thought that was fun.
It's one
Get
of
in
those
one
things
side,
that-
get out the other.
It's one of those things that, had I really enjoyed the episode, they would have earned it for me.
Right.
But this was just another example of just not working.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
and
the British police, they don't have guns and they don't lock doors.
Wait, I thought the doctor sonicked the door.
no, he sonics off her handcuffs.
Maybe it was dual purpose sonicking.
She picked the door.
His aim was just that much off, where it just unlocked everything.
And just the
And
whole
her
flying.
stopping in front of the TARDIS.
Let's just sit and chit chat.
We could have been great together.
Yeah.
Oh, Christina, we were. And the whole thing, the interaction between the two showed and was building up to showing how similar they were. You know, that he stole the TARDIS and she's a thief. But it's just done for different motivations, different reasons, and she doesn't weigh the consequences of her actions. And she doesn't seem like she even cares.
I was just going to say, if she were to become the doctor's companion, she would have made the doctor a worse human being, like a worse person, because she wouldn't have balanced the way that a lot of our companions do. I mean, I think, she wouldn't, because she's not good companion material, but if they had continued to travel together, I feel like she would have been a bad influence on the doctor rather than him saving her.
And I take it a little bit more clinical. As in, this is what we need the doctor to do, and at this point in the script, we need the doctor to not have another companion.
Yeah.
That's how I take it.
Yeah. It's just like, you could have fixed this. There's just, it just kind of like, something's just, this whole episode to me is just not tuned right. Also, the other thing that bugs me, again, that we haven't talked about is, she comes up to him kind of expecting to travel with him. No.
As we've seen before.
Who? Not Donna.
People are excited, but they usually it's more of a.
She
I
bought
feel like we've
suitcases.
seen it
Yes,
before.
Donna brought suitcases because she's
I
Donna,
feel like
but
we've
Donna's.
seen it with a single person before,
But
but,
the-
I can't think of.
But Donna was invited, and then she had to turn it down.
Yeah, and then Donna also wasn't expecting it, but Donna was prepared for
Yeah.
it, but she wasn't expecting it, and they have their little
This
go
gal
back and
had a
forth.
sense of
and then
entitlement.
when she, when he finally does say, "I would love you to come," she's like, "I'd love to come too." Oh, and you could just see her relief and her joy at, oh, this is actually going to happen, whereas Christina is like, well, open up the door and let's escape.
I guess maybe I was so relieved that he turned her down that I never even thought about any of this.
Right.
This is the 200th story of Doctor Who. Russell admits that it's a little bit arbitrary, but he did his own count and he said that this is the 200th story for Doctor Who.
And that's why the bus is 200.
Yep. Yes.
I did
don't
also
know
find
if
it
it's
interesting that the flymen were able to read 200.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned the flyman, we're going to go through the cast. Adam James plays D.I. McMillan, and his godfather was John Pertwee, and you can also see him in Band of Brothers. He played Petty. That's the guy that's trying to arrest Christina. Then Glenn Doherty plays Sergeant Dennison. We mentioned Angela Whitaker. She's played by Victoria Alcock. David Ames plays Nathan. Ellen Thomas plays Carmen. Reginald Sibo plays Lou. We mentioned Daniel Kaluuya. Keith Perry plays the driver, who is doesn't stay long in this episode. There's James Layton.
R.I.P.
Yeah. There's James Layton, who plays Sergeant Ian Jenner. And then we get Paul Casey again, who plays Sorvin, who's one of the flymen. And then Ruari Mears plays the other flyman, Preyagat.
He was previously in Doctor Who. We've seen his face. He is one of the monks in Tooth and Claw. He plays a Cyberman. He plays an Ood, a Jadoon, a Pigman. He is one of the Scarecrows. He's the second host in Voyage of the Damned. He's one of the first of Foster's guards in Partners in Crime. So he's one of those bald men. He plays one of the clones in the Centauran Stratagem, and he is Hath Gable in The Doctor's Daughter. Oh, and then he plays the Cyber Shade in the last special we did, the next Doctor.
The Dune on the moon.
Probably, yeah.
All right.
He was in the platoon.
Yeah.
Playing a bassoon.
I don't know. Hope this ends soon.
I'm trying. I'm really trying. There's a reference to Spaceman, where that's the nickname Donna has called the Doctor in the past.
Right.
You forgot about that one.
That was great.
So, Planet of the Dead. Who is this episode good for? Or more specifically, this episode is good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
I'll start. When I first watched it again for the podcast, I did really enjoy it. And I did not enjoy Midnight as much as some of the other folks here. But after rewatching it, I think part of it was maybe the new set and the new characters. Because, yeah, the story points towards the end with, like, the clamps and the flymen. Like, it does fall down a lot. So, but I do enjoy it. So I'm going to put it in the second category, not for a new Who viewer. I wouldn't show this to somebody to introduce them to Doctor Who, but I don't think it's worthy. Well, I'm going to say casual, and that's what I'm sticking to.
I actually have no idea who this episode could be good for because, but I will say that I really like this episode. In my head, I get it mixed up with Midnight a lot when I'm thinking of when people talk about, oh, you know, the episode on the train or the bus with all the people. Sometimes I think of Midnight, and sometimes I think of this one, and I like this one.
Well,
like
what would you consider yourself? Kind of fan do you consider yourself to be?
I don't know. I guess a casual or I don't know. I'm between a casual viewer and a fan, I guess.
Well, maybe that's something to consider for your.
But I like that Auburn brought up Midnight because I too. This reminds me of Midnight, or I think I get the two confused in my head. But unlike Midnight, where at the end of Midnight or at the end of that show, the characters that were on that bus are like, to me, they're like psychologically damaged from their experience. Where here, it seems like everybody came out of the experience for the better. I don't. The silliness of this episode at times bugs me, like how bumbling the detective is, and there's just some silliness there that I don't really like. But I just want to talk a little bit about Lady Christina because I do like her character, and I think I like it because she's so anti what we're used to having in these one standoff episodes of episodes where we see someone paired with a Doctor who could be a potential companion. And so I like Lady Christina, and I like the bad things about her. I like that she makes me not like her at times. So I just think she's a nice fresh character for this standalone episode Doctor Who. I just really like this episode, but I don't know who it would be good for. I want to say that it's good for everyone because you don't really have to know that much.
But I think you putting it not in a category is also acceptable. So if you're okay doing that.
No, I want to put it in a category.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
I am going to put this episode in the fan category. So maybe a fan. This is the episode that a fan will get the most enjoyment out of, because a fan is someone who watches every single episode and will find the character of Lady Christina might find her a refreshing change. To bring us back to talking about why we don't like Lady Christina though, something she says makes me not like her. When they realize that the sand is from all the people on the planet who were destroyed, her reaction is, "Oh my gosh, it's in my hair." And I'm like, that was a moment where I was like, "You are not allowed to travel with the Doctor ever."
I think that's what we're supposed to feel about her. I get the impression that was their intent.
I do think that they thought they were expecting people to like the character more, but it just failed.
Well, I actually do like the character.
Well, also, she's kind of smiling when she says it.
Yeah, that's what I don't know what they were going for with her, because half the time she is smiling in a way of like, hey, let's go over to your house and read some lines from a script. Won't that be fun? We'll have a few drinks. Like, I never really felt like this person was in the show.
Okay, I totally agree with what you just said, because I liked, as much as Christina drives me insane, I did like that it wasn't the same thing we see all the time. I like that we finally got somebody who was basically the co-star of the episode, that we weren't necessarily rooting to be the next companion. So who would I recommend it to? Maybe a new viewer, but I think I'm gonna go with casual on this one. I'm not opposed to showing this to a new viewer, but I think casual is probably better. I don't even really know why. I'm not so sure this episode would get anyone hooked on the show.
I'm going to say fan, because I feel like this episode didn't have the depth that drew me into Doctor Who to begin with as a new viewer and keeps me watching. Like, if this is the way all the episodes were, I probably wouldn't watch the show anymore. I enjoyed it because I'm a pretty big fan of Doctor Who, even though I know I've sort of said in the past I'm more of a casual fan, but I really like the show when it works well. And I think this is just almost, I know Russell wrote it, but I feel like it was like hey, let's have a guest write one of our episodes who's seen a lot of these. And that's kind of how I feel this episode is. It didn't have the weight that, despite a lot of the silliness, keeps me ingrained or enthralled. It's a rare fan moment from Josh.
Because I did not like this episode when I first saw it. Watching it again, knowing the ending, that he is not going to be taking her, helped enjoy the show a bit more. Because it's not one that is meant to be a deep episode. It is supposed to be a little bit lighter. I don't think it's written as well, because a lot of it was just convenient. We need this to happen, so this will happen. I like Michelle Ryan, who is the actress, but it moved it up from Die Hard. Wouldn't it be somebody new? So between casual and fan, I'm going to go more with a fan.
I'm definitely putting it in the fan category. I wonder what I would feel about this episode if it came in the middle of a regular season, because it's one of the specials, and we knew that this was the ending of David Tennant's tenure. I was expecting more from all of the episodes. But I would put it in the fan category, one, just because of the pacing issues, the editing issues, and I just don't think Christina had a good character arc.
I'm going to try to be short in my similar points. Having this be David Tennant's last go of Doctor Who, there was so much excitement for stuff like this. And when this came out, this was not what I wanted. I have these DVDs, and this is a DVD that I hardly put in my player. I think this is the first time I might have put it in the player to watch for this podcast. And usually when I don't take notes, it's a good thing. Not in this case.
Yeah, if you were like, since they weren't airing as often, if you were like, oh, the new Doctor Who special's coming up, we haven't had one in months, and this was it.
That's what it was. And I'm not going to have another one until months down the line. November. Yeah, this is Easter, and we won't get another one until November. And these are David Tennant's final episodes.
Yeah.
Doing the research, I understand why this episode is so light, because they wanted to go for an Indiana Jones feel, a Flight of the Phoenix feel, and then the pitch black feel. Yeah, I don't know if it all worked, but I can see what they were trying to achieve. And there are things that I like about this. Lee Evans as Malcolm is great, and I do like Michelle Ryan. She's very attractive to look at in this thing, but ultimately the character doesn't do anything for me. I'm going to have to put it in a fan category. Because, I mean, you could skip this, and I think you'd be fine. Just go straight to Waters of Mars.
Ugh.
Oh, I love Waters of Mars.
Ooh.
I do too.
It's one of my favorites.
It's the best of the specials.
Well, wait till next time when we talk about Waters
I
of Mars.
love Waters of Mars.
Oh, the last thing I wanted to mention is that in the closing credits, this is dedicated to Barry Letts, who passed away in 2009, and he was one of the driving forces of Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who, and is a producer of Doctor Who in the John Pertwee and Tom Baker era. So that wraps up Planet of the Dead. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by Allburn.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
Comment on our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
Also, listen to us on your Amazon Echo by enabling a podcast skill.
All of our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell.
Sydney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
the Tridivores. Yeah. The Tridivores ship. It's just this one bugs me.
It bugs you?
This
Those characters bug you?
pun intended.
But they were really just, they're there for exposition to be a
Thank
fly
you,
on the
Ed
wall.
McMahon.
Personally, this episode stingrays me.
Oh, that's funny.
That's why I'm here. You know, that's why I'm here.
Anything else? Okay, moving on. There's our first edit.
I probably edited before then. I think that's picking up.
Yeah, I'm trying not to do it.
Edit that out, because that's gross.